Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Cedric here in Antwerp with a brand new brew review. We are going to talk about another Spanish beer today. This time we're talking about Daura Damm. And Daura Damm is brewed by the Damm brewery, so sería Damm, that you might know from Damm, for example. But this is in fact one of their specialty beers. By specialty beers I do mean that they developed this in cooperation with the High Council for Scientific Research in Spain, and they were one of the first brands that developed a completely gluten-free beer. Now when I say completely gluten-free, scientifically speaking, this still has 3 ppm or parts per million gluten in its contents. Nonetheless, the health organization's consensus is that as long as a product contains less than 20 ppm of gluten, celiacs don't get any distress out of that. So this is way lower than that 20 ppm and exponentially lower than normal beers. Apart from being gluten-free, this beer is brewed with malted barley and rice, so it is also better digestible. Think about Vedette here in Belgium, is also brewed with a lot of rice. If you have an upset stomach but you still want a beer, take a beer brewed with rice. It's less complex and easier on the digestive system. What else can I tell you about this beer? This is actually a pretty standard lager, 5.4%. I do know that they brew it to a gravity of 13.1 degrees Plato. Now, if you guys paid attention in one of my last videos, you know that 2 degrees Plato translates to 1%, 1% ABV. So 13 divided by 2 is 6.5, but we always keep around 2% or 2 degrees Plato in rest sugars, and also, well, those last 2 degrees Plato are harder to ferment. That brings us to 5.4% ABV, more or less. So what I am expecting is a nice crisp lager, low in alcohol, and I'm thinking light and slightly bitter because it is a classic Spanish lager. Let's find out. This immediately shows a nice, very clear beer, a very clear lager, a nice pale lager. This is like, yellowish. I wouldn't call this gold, but yellowish blonde, nice and pale. Also lovely white foam, quite dense foam, decent amount as well. And let's say a bittersweet, very classic beer smell. This is the beer smell that we all know and love, the first fragrance that we come to know when it comes to beer. That's exactly this. So very, very classic. Now back to the color. You will notice that a lot of beers brewed with rice are not only clearer, that's partly because they get filtered a bit more, but are also paler. And if you guys remember me or anyone else telling you this a while ago, it's mainly the malt bill that decides the color of the beer. So if you have dark malts, dark beer. If you have caramel malts, amberish beer. If you have pale malts, pale beer. And rice is, well, not that colorful. So nice and pale. So let's see how this tastes. Very nice indeed. A very decent mouthfeel. It is quite carbonated, so I would say this is around 6 grams per liter of carbon dioxide, where most lagers are around 5 grams. But this has a decent or a boosted amount of carbon dioxide in my opinion, and I kind of like that because it is a rather thin beer and a rather low gravity beer. So this beer can handle some extra carbon dioxide. Slightly sweeter than I expected, because even though that this only has 2 degrees Plato left of sugars, which is a very, very standard amount, it smelled bittersweet, but it tastes a bit sweeter. You still have that bitterness, and it is quite dry in the back of the throat, the back of the tongue. So it is very crisp and very refreshing, and it goes down very smoothly, but it's still slightly sweeter than I expected, which isn't bad per se. I just like my pilsners or my lagers a bit less sweet. Nonetheless, that doesn't, yeah, that doesn't lower the quality of a beer. That's just personal preference. The aftertaste, however, is, yeah, more bitter than the initial taste, and it does have that slight sweet edge, like that caramel taste. Um, so this actually reminds me of those tostada beers or the amber beers, even though we can clearly see that there's no amber to this beer. But yeah, actually that's quite a nice touch. Okay, I actually like this beer a lot, um, and the fact that they put in so much effort and money to develop a beer that is celiac friendly, that is gluten free, that anyone could drink, that is, yeah, highly digestible. Um, that's a plus for me. So let's call this a, well, at least a 325 in Untapped. And yeah, we'll talk about the brewery later because unfortunately I fell ill last week, so I didn't have a lot of time. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, if you guys like this video, let me know, hit a thumbs up, share it anywhere you like with your fellow beer geeks. If you want to see more, hit subscribe and yeah, click that bell icon so you'll get notified whenever I upload something, which should be Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 6 p.m. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers, you guys.